Welcome back, everyone. I don't have a lower body. Thank you, everybody, so much for dropping by once again for another Guild Wars 2 ranking video. Today, I'm going to be ranking the base professions instead of the elite specializations. I'm just going to be focusing on the 9 classes that released with Guild Wars 2. And without further ado, let's jump in. This is a PvE-minded video. It's an opinion piece. There's no real weight into all of this, but just a disclaimer. Okay, I'll see you over there. Okay, everyone, let us look at 9 professions. I'm going to be going in no particular order other than the list that I have currently as it is shown on the tier maker template. And that means the first up will be Elementalist. Now, for Elementalist and this video as a whole, it's interesting because typically people put so much more weight into the elite specializations because they are the most innovative, they change, and oftentimes are the most powerful. So I'm going to try to keep it within the realm of the professions themselves while trying to disregard elite specializations. And even so, this whole discussion, this video in particular, might not be raid oriented or high-end gameplay oriented, just the overall function of these professions in PvE in general. So for Elementalist, I think they're probably A tier. I think Elementalist has a lot for new players who like the mage class, for veteran players of the game where they could, you know, go into something a bit more skilled while attunement swapping, managing attunements, managing cooldowns within the attunements, and also having some utility skills that will reflect attunements if you really want to play that style. But I think Elementalist, in all, you know, hits most of the grounds in terms of Guild Wars 2 combat. It has good flat damage. It can do condition damage, though that's one area I'd like to see possibly improved with another elite specialization. Weaver kind of touches on it, but still. So you have the power, you have slight condition damage, you have a moderate amount of healing, though Tempest, in my other video, Tempest is the class act for, you know, support and healing. And you can aura share in terms of, you know, more nuanced support. So I think Elementalist, overall, A tier. I mean, you even have some tanking options with Earth, and if you want to go Earth Shield, or Stone Flesh, or Mist Form, something of that nature. So Elementalists have quite a lot to play around with. Next up, we're going to be ranking Engineer, and I'm going to suspend my biases towards Engineer. I don't have a negative bias, I just don't necessarily play Engineer quite all that much. And because I don't play Engineer all that much, I'm going to keep it at an A tier. If I played it a lot, I would imagine I'd put Engineer at S tier. And I would say it's probably S, maybe A, just because of the amount of playstyles Core Engineer has accessible to the profession, with its kits, its turrets, its elixirs that it can share out and throw, but mostly for its kits. You only have a limited weapon range for your base class, so that might bring it down a little bit from the S tier. But you have kits. You have like 6 different kits which act as your own weapons, and that you can use in conjunction with your normal weapon set. You can even have 2 kits on your utilities at once, even though that's a little bit possibly weirder. I typically see people just running with 1 kit, but there might be 2 or 3 kit builds out there. I think that'd actually be really fun, actually. Video idea? Stay tuned. But in all, I think Engineer is really effective, and I think it's a lot of fun to play. It's not my cup of tea in terms of its thematic ties, but I'll play around with it every once in a while. I always say every other blood moon when there's a meteor shower. Next up, we're going to be looking at my main, the very first profession that I mained, this being Guardian. Same with Engineer. However, I play Guardian so much more. Even though with Engineer I don't play it, I still want to put it maybe S- tier, A+ tier. And I'm having that same issue with Guardian. Guardian has decent base damage. It can tank, though it does have a lower health pool. It has a lot of access to boons. It can heal moderately, though with Firebrand that's when you get most of your healing application. I don't know. I think in terms of personal taste, I would put the base function of Guardian at A currently because of the virtues being kind of weak. Their main profession mechanic is very iconic to the Guardian, but when you look, I know I said I would suspend my elite specializations, but for Guardian I think it's more pointed because with knowing where Guardian is now with its elite specializations, the virtue system really does kind of fall behind. So in this specific case, I'd put Guardian at A+ tier. There's just something that leaves room for desire with the base Guardian. Its spirit weapons are still kind of clunky. The consecrations are kind of just there. Couple the trait lines with Valor, especially, seem very outdated and a little meh. Actually, the more that I'm thinking about it, it's kind of more B+, A- tier in all regards. So that's where I'm going to place Guardian. I think it's a safe A-, A range in general. But there are arguments that you could probably make for S or B tier. So that's how I feel about Core Guardian right now. Next up, Core Mesmer. In all honesty, I really, really like Core Mesmer. I don't know if I'm going to place it at S tier or A tier. This is very challenging because the Core Mesmer has a lot that you can use in terms of its utility, its function. Granted, in PvE, their utilities aren't necessarily power-oriented or really heavily emphasized in terms of power. So in that regards, it might be a little bit more, I don't know, nuanced because it is utility focused. But its illusions, its shatters, they all seem to work very well together. I do think with the Phantasm rework, Core Mesmer got a little bit of a bump down because Core Mesmer was originated and you know, made with phantasms in mind. The long-term phantasms, that is. Not necessarily the short phantasms or the short-lived phantasms. They did adjust areas, so it's not as gut-wrenching. But I think Mesmer overall, in terms of its shatter potential, sword, main hand, sword, offhand, its condition potential with the staff, and scepter and torch, focus, greatsword, you have a lot of good weapon options for various circumstances. So I think overall, Mesmer is still one of the better ones. Next up, I'm going to be judging Quarry Necro. And I'm gonna place Quarry Necro probably S tier. Quarry Necro is, I think, the god of tanking. If you're just looking at the core builds, it's probably the most beginner friendly, even though this isn't a beginner's ranking video, which I might actually do that as well. But in terms of open world PvE, endgame PvE, Quarry Necro is the most easy to get into. You have a lot of survivability, you have a lot of damage, especially with wells, your wells doing damage, applying blindness, converting conditions and boons, a lot of utility. Minions are just a passive damage ticker. Granted, they're not the strongest, but when you fight alongside your minions, you can, you know, clear content very quickly. So I think, all in all, Necro is probably the strongest in terms of its core. I do think it begins to get a little bit muddied when you look at its elite specializations. But even though I think Necromancer, for all it's worth, people often, you know, criticize Necro or Chronomancer. But I do think Mesmer and people criticize Necro and Mesmer in general, but I do think they're fairly strong. you know, you could refine areas, of course. You can always do refinement in games, but I do think they have a good footing in the world of Guild Wars 2. And not in terms of the lore, but in terms of the combat and the way mechanics go and how they can deal with them. Next up, I will be ranking Core Ranger. I think Core Ranger, this is where we start to see the B range. It's not amazing, but it's not awful. Core Ranger's good. It's good, but it's not a standout in terms of the other ones, in my opinion. Your pet is always there, which is really cool. Your pet can offer some nice abilities and cool effects. And you can really play into a beast mastery theme. I do really want there to be an elite specialization, which allows you to use a second pet. And I actually made a fan-made elite specialization on that, so go check that out too. I'll probably have it linked somewhere again up top. But Core Ranger is effective. You have the longbow, you have the great sword. You have both long range, mid range, and close range combat. You have decent survivability with being, I think, the highest medium, either the highest medium or middle medium health pool. So you're not squishy necessarily. And a lot of your utilities allow for extra survivability. So I think overall, Ranger is more B tier. Core Ranger and World vs. World is good, but this is not a World vs. World video. Next, I'll be talking about, I'm going to say Revenant for last. I will be now ranking Thief. And I think Thief is B plus A tier, probably. Thief is squishy. So if you are a rogue or an assassin and you typically play those classes or professions in games, you'll be right at home with a thief. You have a lot of stealth application, evasion, blinds, smoke screens. You can pull. You have a lot of tricks up your sleeve because they do have a trick utility line. That's a bad pun. But I think overall, Thief is it's B tier. Once again, for the reason that it's good, but it's not a standout, in my opinion. Its trait lines are pretty good too. That's why I would say probably B plus A minus as well, but I'm going to place it at B for all my aforementioned reasons. Next up, I think penultimately, we have three. Yeah, this will be the 8th one, and then we'll have the Revenant Warrior. I'm gonna place Warrior probably at A tier. And I think so far you can kind of get a grasp that the core professions are very strong. The core 8 professions, very strong, very well rounded. I just had like an aneurysm. And it shows. They've had 8 years or so, at least I think we're coming up on 8 or 9 years. They've had a long time to develop these classes and to really refine them. They've done reworks here and there, but overall they've pretty much kept their identity and ironed out the kinks. And I think Warrior is no exception. It has the most access to weapons, excluding kits from the engineer. The most base core weapons that you can use on the fly. Weapon swap, you have a lot to do with your adrenaline skills. You have shouts and banners. You have more utility. You have boon up times where you can. Fouling strength even allows for some extra support. And all in all, base Warrior can do moderate damage, and it has the highest health pool. So you can really kind of build hybrid. You can build like a brawler character. You can build with sustain and damage in mind and still function in Guild Wars 2 very easily, and not really seeing too much challenge. There's always challenge in Guild Wars 2, but for the most part, with certain builds, you can really mitigate struggles where other professions would, not do so well. Key culprits being Thief and probably Elementalist. But overall, Warrior is pretty good. And finally, Revenant. Ugh. I'm gonna put Revenant. You guys saw this coming. But I think, oh wait, and that's Renegade. Never mind. They look the same. The icons look the same. I'm sorry. Revenant, I'm like C or D tier in all honesty. I'm gonna put it at C because it passes. It works. It works as a profession and it works as a class. It's like, it's not like it just totally, I mean, actually it doesn't even, You guys, it sometimes doesn't even work because some patches you'll have all your skills be mangled up or completely stripped for you. I'm honestly gonna put it at a D tier. Guys, I cannot bring myself to rank Core Revenant as even being C. There are some areas where it works, but in all honesty, Core Revenant really struggles. In all of these other cases, you can play the core profession pretty well, do most content. You could probably even do fractals, and hell, you could probably even find a way to do raids. And I'm not joking. But when it comes to Core Revenant, you are straight out of luck. And patches will totally destroy your fluidity. There will be probably a next patch, and you have to go through all your Revenant characters, re-manage all your skills, reassign them. I mean, I don't know what happened with the development of Revenant, but it was probably the Heart of Thorns curse in terms of the developers needing to create a core profession that would line up with the other professions while also producing 9 elite specializations. That was a task. That was a heavy burden and a task for them to accomplish. And I think that they accomplished with the elite specializations, but I think they really dropped the ball in terms of how the Revenant works in its core. You only have, 4 legends to choose from? And within those 4 legends, you only have that strict amount of utility skills. You don't have 4 utility skills from your 7th to 9th slot. You only have those 3 abilities. And I think Core Revenant in that regard fails. In terms of their traits, they're still a little muddy. They don't work all the time. They don't mix well with the class. You have such a limited weapon pool to choose from. You only have 1 long-ranged weapon, the hammer, which is really slow and clunky and only used in World versus World. And even then, it's been nerfed down quite a bit. You don't have any support weapon other than the staff. So if you want to play ranged, it's not like you have a scepter. I honestly think if they added a core weapon to Revenant, it would really help them. I would recommend a core scepter, a dagger, or a focus. Honestly, if they put in a scepter and a focus into the core and gave them that, extra flexibility in terms of playstyles, playing with Ventari, maybe it has some condition damage, so you could do some Maliks. Or maybe, the focus is more defense oriented, so you could do sword focus to be more with Jalis. I just think that it's such a scrambled Rubik's Cube, where one side of the Rubik's Cube, to continue with this analogy, one side of it, honestly, 2 sides of it are done. You have the Renegade and you have the Herald. But the other 4 sides are screwed, and that being Assassin Stance, Jalis, Ventari, and Maliks. Those are the ones that really suffer. And the energy upkeep, I know they got an F2, which helps. I do like the F2. That is a good one. But the energy upkeep and the energy system should be just strictly tied to the utility skills. But the weapon skills have cooldowns, and they have energy costs. And it's like, but why? Why do they have such heavy energy costs for weapon skills when they also have cooldowns? It just feels very strange. So I think they could really do some... I would really enjoy a Renegade overhaul in general. But if they did some cleaning up, redefining of what they want to do with the Revenant, and getting a clarity of concept, that I think is where the Revenant shines. But for right now, I would place the Revenant at a D rank. It's not even, it's below passing. It's not failing, but it's just not even, I'm not even thinking it's C worthy. And that's just my personal opinion. Don't shoot me. But yes, everyone, I think this is how I'm going to be ranking it. S tier probably being Mesmer and Necromancer. A tier being Elementalist, Engineer, Guardian, Warrior. And B tier being Ranger and Thief. And then coming in last, we have Revenant. All in all, the 8 core professions are really good. They're very healthy. They're in a very healthy area. Elite specializations tend to complicate the mix. But if we're just looking at the core classes, I'd say these are really strong and really well-rounded and masterfully crafted. I mean, at this point, if they weren't, oh boy. Love to see some Revenant changes. But all in all, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Comment down below how you would rank the core professions. And all my links are down below. If you want to buy Guild Wars 2, try it for free. If you want to become a patron, Twitter, Twitch, Discord, all of the above, they're all linked down below. Thank you guys so much for your support and your time. I hope you guys enjoy these little videos. I might do a beginner's ranking for professions. I really like the tier ranking. I don't know why. I hope you guys don't get sick of it, but I might stop and do something else for a little bit and then come back to it. But once again, thank you for being here, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye, everyone.